Welcome to the Soul Mirror. I'm your host, Shreya. Today, we step into a conversation shaped by resilience, reflection, and the quiet courage of starting again. Lee Carlson is a storyteller forged by lived experience, a journalist, author, Zen practitioner, and survivor whose new book, now a number one bestseller in spiritual healing, invites readers into a rare fusion of truth and transcendence. His life has been marked by profound loss, profound recovery, and profound dedication to meaning. This episode invites us to look into the mirror of our own lives through the clarity of his. Welcome, Lee. I'm honored to have you on my show.
And I'm really happy to be here, Shreya. Thank you very much for having me.
Lee, your new book has already touched so many people. What core truth were you most compelled to bring forward through this work?
Well, you talked about resilience, and I think the real truth is using spirituality to find that resilience. So I am a Japanese Zen Buddhist practitioner, and I've spent many hours in meditation. And the losses you refer to, I had a traumatic brain injury. I went through a difficult divorce. I lost my kids because of the divorce and the injury. There was just a lot of trauma in my life during the period that this book covers, and it's how I dealt with that, and I learned how to deal with that thanks to my teacher, Peter Matheson, who was my Zen master, and some other teachers that I had along the way, and through meditation, and it was interesting how the world mirrored back to me and reflected back to me what was going on. I had a number of doctors and therapists and marriage counselors who all pulled me aside and said, "Wow, you're really handling this well, better than most people. And what's your secret?" And the secret, I think, was really having that spiritual side to my life and spending time in quiet meditation and just looking at the world from a different viewpoint than most people look at it from.
Thank you for sharing this story. And did that truth reveal itself early in the writing or only after you lived through more than you expected?
Well, everybody experiences truth differently. Some people have a major epiphany and it just all hits them all at once. I had a couple of those in the book, but I think it's really more for me something that grows over time and you just have to be patient and work at it. And the writing of the book was really a way of getting that out to the world and getting it not just on paper for myself, but to get it out for other people to read it and so that it could help other people as well that went through or are going through similar life crises that I was having at the same time.
Yes, that evolution of truth gives your story an authentic gravity. Listeners can sense that the message was not crafted but earned. And also, your journey through traumatic brain injury transformed not just your body but your inner landscape. What part of your identity felt most reshaped by that experience?
Um, it was my spiritual identity. It's learning to connect with something greater than yourself, learning to connect with what some people call a presence, some people call the other, some people call the great spirit. And that gives you so much strength when you realize it's not just about you and that you're just sort of a smaller part of something much bigger and much greater. And when you reach that realization, when that happens, it does give you a real inner strength that just allows you to face all sorts of things, whatever they might be.
Yes, and do you ever feel remnants of your former self pulling at you, or has the new version fully taken its place?
No, I think the remnants of my previous self will always be there, and they're not bad remnants either. So some of my previous self is was good. It's happened to me. I started studying with my master when I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and then I had my accident in my early 40s. And so, I think most great spiritual teachers will tell you to not totally leave behind who you were because that would be very difficult and probably not so great as well. So it's a like most things with Zen, it's a paradox. You move forward and you find your new self, but you also get in touch and keep your old self. There's a very famous Zen koan. A koan is a kind of a riddle that it kind of knocks you out of your conventional thought processes. And most people have heard the most famous one and that most people know is what is the sound of one hand clapping? Well, there's another one which is what was your face before you were born?
That delicate balance between who we were and who we become offers such a relatable tension, especially for anyone navigating their own healing. And also, Zen has clearly become a central compass for you. How has Zen shaped the way you approach suffering and meaning today?
Well, suffering is a huge subject and a huge topic in my book. There's the suffering that we're all taught, the sort of normal suffering, which is the suffering of the loss of a loved one, the suffering of pain, the suffering of maybe not getting the job promotion you wanted or not getting the love that you wanted from somebody else. And that's certainly a part of suffering. And so when you start really getting in touch with your inner self and also with the other outer self, the other, you start to develop some compassion. And when you develop that compassion, well, then you have compassion for yourself, you have compassion for your own suffering, and you learn to transform your suffering into something much bigger and much greater. But there's also something even beyond that, and that is what I think the Buddha was really talking about, and Zen is a form of Buddhism, of course. And that's the human condition. We all suffer in some level, and in the Judeo-Christian tradition, they try to explain it with the parable of the Garden of Eden, that, we all exist in this state of bliss at one point, but when we find ourselves cut off from spirituality, when we find ourselves cut off from the other, in the Garden of Eden, it was, being banished from the garden and being banished from connection with God, that we all suffer a little bit inside. And it's kind of this inner angst, this human condition. And if we can learn to reconnect ourselves with that spiritual sense, a lot of the suffering drops away because suddenly when you realize that you're connected with something much bigger than yourself, and a lot of suffering is about you. It's about, hey, what's happening to me? Like it's like I'm suffering, right? And because I'm suffering because something happened to me. Well, when the me becomes less important and drops away, then your suffering becomes less important and drops away as well, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is like explain that so beautifully. And also, is there a particular teaching or moment of practice that fundamentally shifted your understanding?
Yes, there were really two main moments that I cover in the book and then several smaller moments. And they really were transformative. They came on very suddenly, and you spend years meditating, hours meditating, and you're laying the groundwork. You're sowing the seeds for something to happen. You never know when it's gonna happen or if it will happen at all, but when it does happen and you suddenly have this realization, that can really just change the way you see the world and open your eyes to seeing the world in a very different way. For me, the first moment was with a meditation group and at a, that somebody was teaching meditation and the lights sort of went low and then it was like a switch flipped in my brain. And people use different words for it. Some people call it an opening experience. Some people call it an enlightenment experience. In Japanese Zen, it's known as Kensho, Kensho. And it's basically an experience where you suddenly experience the divine and you suddenly experience this greater other, this presence. And the second time it happened to me, I was on an ocean beach in the winter. It was just one of those incredibly atmospheric days, and the combination of the beach and the waves crashing and the weather and some music that was on my car radio as I was sitting at the beach, it just all came together and just again flipped a switch in my brain that allowed me to see an incredible love that underlies all things and how important that is and how that really connects us all.
Yes. I think hearing how philosophy translates into lead transformation helps ground the conversation and something listeners can carry into their own lives. And also, as a long-time journalist and editor, you have trained yourself to observe the world with precision. How did that sensibility influence the way you wrote this deeply personal narrative?
Sure. So, as a journalist, you are taught to not only observe and be aware, but you're taught to question everything to get to the heart of the matter, to get to the truth of the matter. And so, having had that training, I found that Zen was very much the same way. One of the things I appreciate about Zen and my teachers were they said, okay, don't just take what I say at face value. You need to really experience it for yourself. You need to delve into it for yourself and you need to practice it. And you can read about it in books, you can see it on, YouTube, but it's not the same as you actually experiencing it. So that definitely bringing that sensibility to the work really helped. And then when I wrote the book, um, yes, I had many years of training as a writer, but I also had Peter Matheson as a teacher who was not just a great spiritual teacher and a Zen master, but he was also very well known as a writer. He's the only writer to win the National Book Award in the United States for both fiction and nonfiction. And he helped me with my first book, and he had that writer's sensibility that, again, and he had started as a journalist, so he helped me see things in that way. And one of the things he told me when I wrote the book was, he read the first draft of my first book and he said, "This is great, but you need to go deeper." And I've always remembered that. And that's a good advice for almost anything and anybody that whether it's writing or spirituality is just to keep going deeper. And when you're writing a memoir like this, you have to get below the surface. You can't just sort of tell the surface story. You have to really, really go deep and deep into what you were feeling and what you were experiencing and what were seeing, and then you have to find the way to get that onto the page and to get that so that the readers can experience it as well. I'm a big believer that people learn through stories, and that's part of my training as a journalist, but also just as a writer, and I love reading stories. I love reading adventure stories, and this is sort of a great adventure story. It's a adventure story of how you explore your inner self, how you explore the mind, how you connect with the other, and so I had to make sure that I really put that in there, that it was deep enough so that other people would read it and understand it and learn from it.
Yes. And did that discipline ever conflict with the vulnerability the story demanded?
Um, sure, there were lots of conflicts all the way through the process, and there are always conflicts, and even what you put in and what you leave out. For example, I one of the Buddha's precepts is to not speak ill of others or not elevate yourself above others because you have to realize that we're all the same, we're all connected. So if you're criticizing somebody else, you might in effect be criticizing yourself. And yet at the same time, if you're writing a book about this sort of topic and about conflict, and there were people in the book that I'd had, that didn't see the world the way I saw it. And I remember at one point Peter saying to me, you just have to tell the truth. You cannot totally know where it's going to lead. And so you have to just put it all out there. And especially for a book, if there is no conflict and there is no drama to it, then it's kind of boring. So you have to find that fine line between telling the truth, but not, you know, being unkind to people or that sort of thing.
Yes. I think that tension between structure and surrender adds a fascinating complexity to your work, making your book feel both crafted and deeply human. And also, your life has moved through journalism, filmmaking, advertising, and now spiritual healing through writing. What thread connects all these chapters for you?
I think, curiosity, I think willingness to always learn and move forward. I remember at one point, I was talking to Peter Matheson, and I called him a Zen master, And he sort of chuckled and he looked at me and said, other people may call me a master, but I don't call myself a master. I'm just a student and I'll always be a student. And I think that trait, I hope to have that trait till the day I die. I think that trait of always being a student and knowing that there is something more to learn, that you've never reached the pinnacle, that you've never done it all, is a really important trait to have.
Yes, that is so beautiful. And if you could name the one intention guiding you into your next chapter, what would it be?
It's to help others. I think that is, you realize when you've been through that kind of suffering and that you meet a lot of other people and you see people searching for happiness. Happiness is a huge buzzword these days. Well, why is that such a big thing? Because a lot of people are unhappy and at various levels. And if they weren't unhappy, they wouldn't be searching for happiness. It wouldn't be such a major topic. So helping people find their true selves, helping people find happiness, helping them get through difficult periods in their lives, I think that is a major intention and a major goal. And it's really the whole point of spiritual practice. To me, it's not just about healing yourself. It's about getting to the point where you heal others around you and you help others around you. And that's, why do we do this? Why is this important? Well, this is important because if you can make other people happy and help them find happiness, not make them happy, they have to do that themselves. But if you help them along the way, then, and if they're happier, then they'll treat other people better with more respect and with more love and with more happiness. And so you really are just influencing the world and how the world is happening around you and the people around you.
Thanks. That arc captures the expansiveness of a life lived with curiosity, reminding listeners that reinvention is not disruption, it's evolution. And this is a wonderful conversation with you. And thank you for being here with us today. Your openness, your gentleness, and the way you speak from real lips too, it reaches people. And also it reminds us we all are trying to find our way back to ourselves. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
So the best way to connect with me is I have a website, which is leecarlson.life, not leecarlson.com, but leecarlson.life. And because this is all about people's lives, it's about our lives. And if you go to that website, you can find out more about me and you can find out more about my books, but you can also, my email is on there. I always encourage people to reach out to me if they want, if they have any questions. And you will see there's events calendar on there. There's a blog, which is down right now, but it's going to be back up soon. I just had to make some adjustments to it. And then and then on that, if you go there and you sign up and put in your email to sign up for the email list, you will get you can then download a free 25-page guide to how to find a mentor for mindfulness, and another guide, which is a 5-page guide with questions, which is a study guide for studying the book if you have a book club or if you belong to a meditation group. And I think that really there are many different kinds of meditation and different kinds of groups. I mean, Zen worked for me, but you might find some other group that's different, that's Tibetan or Indian or a Native American or just a sort of non-denominational of some sort. And you just want to find a group where you feel comfortable and a teacher you feel comfortable with. And I highly encourage people, you can listen to podcasts, you can watch videos on YouTube, you can read books, and that's all really great. But at the end of the day, finding a good group of like-minded people to help you along the path is really a good thing. And finding a group of like-minded people that have a good teacher as well that you connect with is really great. And I think that's finding that connection with others, um, that that can help you, because a lot of this we feel like we're alone a lot of times. And when you start to realize that you're not alone, that there are other people to help you and to help you along the path and that are experiencing some things that you're experiencing, and to help you get through whatever you're going through is a really great thing.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and know more from you because you are really a wonderful person. And thank you, Lee, for sharing such profound insight and depth. And your story is a powerful reminder that healing is not a straight line, but a deliberate returning to presence, to meaning, and to the self we are still discovering. And to all my listeners, let these words inspire you to reflect on your own resilience, to reconnect with the truths that matter, and to take one courageous step toward your own inner clarity. Thank you.